Hey guys, it's Tom Box. Thanks for tuning into MST.TV. I'm kind of back from my vacation, kind of not. I got 3 workday retreat finished. Now I got 7 more days to go. So I just came back and I feel like I should be releasing something interesting. So I'm going to do a balanced prediction for you guys. Starting with the prediction of when is it going to come out. I'm predicting early July to mid-July. I think it was on the top half of July, mainly because now that the WCQ is done and there's going to be other WCQs finishing, like the European Championships and all over the globe, everything's going to be done. There's no real point holding on to this current list when there's product to be coming out, such as the Rising Rampage. Although Rising Rampage might not be the most exciting set for most people, it is introducing a lot of new archetypes, boosting a lot of old archetypes as well. So that is something that I think they might give us a bit of an earlier taste on. And in terms of my ban list angle, rather than give you guys my wish list of let's keep all the Danger Thunder Dragon stuff a-okay so that I can take over Europe, honestly I want to play the deck a bit more, but that's not how things are. I've been looking at the tournament data from WCQ, looking at Nationals, looking at the most recent results from YCSs as well. All of those things combined has kind of put together a small little list of cards that should get hit, and if we're going to go with a format change, this is probably what I'm aiming for. So for my ban list prediction, I have 3 ban cards, 5 limited cards, 2 semi-limited cards, and 3 cards to be released. Those are, of course, just wild guesses because these are cards probably don't have much impact overall. So that's my angle on the take, and you guys can agree, disagree. Let me know your thoughts of perhaps what are your thoughts of better hit targets, or am I going too lenient on one side or the other? But yeah, let's get into this. So looking at the recent WCQ, YCSs, and the Nationals in Europe, I don't have the Continentals data because I made this video before then. I can say that Sky Strikers are definitely top contender because we've got multiple players that are going to Worlds because of Sky Strikers, as well as multiple players going to Worlds because of Danger Thunder Dragon. Huge thing right there. So that's the first 2 decks that I'm going to include. And then in terms of Europe, mainly Salamangreats were winning, so Salamangreats also part of the cut. And then there's also Orcus. Although they made a big splash, they did not ultimately win in most of these events. I'm sure there's more, and there's even Mystic Mine in there, kind of stuck in there. And Mystic Mine is also one of the biggest contributors to why people aren't having much fun in this game, and it is very frustrating because there are several things to manage in terms of a ban list. Of course, there is products that are going to be coming out. That's one of the biggest factors because they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. And then how much fun players are having, because if players are not having fun, especially at all levels, it's not just the top tier level. If players are not having fun at any of these levels, it will be adjusted. I've seen Konami do this so many times, and over the past, it's one of the most precedented thing to kind of rely on in terms of making a ban list prediction. So let's kick things off with Sky Strikers. Sky Striker, we're going to take a look at multi-roll. Since multi-roll is going to be the one card that I suggest probably is going to get banned, we can see that it's going to have major impact. It's impede on the opening play if they need to send the field spell to the grave to get the Ray out, to reset cards, and also the Shizuku to get the Widow Anchor set onto the board. Those are some major plays that are going to be affected if you hit the multi-roll. And that means the end phase is not going to reset more cards, having multiple engages through that way. That is a major hit. So that is probably going to lower the top tierness of the deck down to a much more manageable level for more decks. And to most competitive players, that just means it's going to fall out of the meta and it's just going to become another deck that is still playable but not as strong. Is it going to be splashing into other decks? I'm not too sure if they're worth the splash, especially when they don't have Hornet drones, and token-based cards are already like overpowered in terms of the current ways that we play Yu-Gi-Oh, especially with Link format. Next up, we have one of the most annoying Link monsters of them all, the one that replaced Firewall. They can say this one's the Firewall successor, which is Sayuja Skulldread. Skulldread is the most annoying card out there in terms of gaining advantage, fixing hands, getting additional summons, and a boosting attack. Like, sure, the boosting attack is like whatever, but the additional summon is definitely something to be feared of, and the draw 4 effect, return 3 fixes basically any sort of dead hand, especially if you have multiple copies of anything. You can get rid of that. And the worst thing about this card, or yet it is also one of the best things, is that it's not once per turn. So I can also see this card being limited down to 1, that I can see is kind of fair. Is like, I guess, dampening the collateral damage on other decks that do rely on this card. But ultimately, a lot of the top 2 contenders are going to say, yeah, this card's definitely ban worthy. I mean, what kind of card lets you draw for it? It has like almost like a graceful charity element into it. And so many decks can just splish splash like 4 monsters onto the field with different names and then just go into it, especially with the dangers coming out, or sorry, the dangers that are already here. And if you just spam dangers into any deck, you can quickly go into a Saryuja. So yeah, that's one thing, and that's probably one of the major hits towards Danger Thunder Dragon, which is the top 2 contender that uses this card the most. And then we have a card which is the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardiche. This card single-handedly will put Orcus into the map because of the fact that it is a dark monster. It also fetches out free cards, and because it fetches out those free cards, letting you extend your combos to the point where you have multiple Fog Blades, perhaps more negations, and it seems like this card is the one card to hit out of all the Orcus cards, because if you take this card out, you're not going to deal with as much explosions, you're not going to deal with as much negations, you're going to deal with a regular Orcus deck. And I think it's fair because this card fetches out the 2 Fog Blades, gives you the extra body. I think this is the way to go. Why not hit the Nightmare Mermaid? Because if you hit Nightmare Mermaid, you're going to stop the deck entirely from kicking off, and then they'll just have really weak plays. But of course, the other possible hit would be the Mermaid to limit the deck down in terms of opening plays. If you make a deck struggle to open, the deck is actually not as fun anymore to play because you just can't play. It's like taking away like all your engages and taking like, oh, let's limit Ray down to 1, and then you lose that Ray, the whole deck is dead. The analogy there is, don't take away the opening play, let them play with less things and let them manipulate the ending play a bit more so that the interaction changes rather than just get completely crippled because they can't open anymore. Like, sure, Mermaid's already like a really big weakness, but it is also like a very cheap way to open and get their plays done. So Bardiche is probably the way to go. And that's just my prediction for the 3 banned cards. Let's look into some of the limited stuff. Card number 1 to get limited for me would be Mystic Mine. As much as I love Konami introducing this card into the game, honestly, it was a very smart card. They changed the way that we build our side deck. We have to account for spell trap removal at all times because this card is so threatening, and it also introduced a major weakness to the decks that play Sekka's Light. Because of that weakness, we have to alter, so we have to sacrifice our drawing speed just so that we don't automatically lose to Mystic Mine. That is a fair game point, but at the lower tier levels of Yu-Gi-Oh!, this card still acts as a win button where your opponent just can't play and then they just lose. And having no fun is something that I don't think is healthy for the game. That makes people leave, and lower tier players, they eventually go high tier once they see a deck that they like to play. So this card is one of the ways that it prevents it from happening. So if this card goes away or gets limited down to 1, it is a bit more fair where people do have resources to take it out. But if you take it out and then they metaverse it back out onto the field, then it just becomes a problem because you burn so many resources to get there. You're willing to trade off 3 or 4 cards to get to the point where you can pop it, only for the card to come back anyway. And that means your opponent was able to use 1 card to burn 3 cards of resource out of you. And that's just not very fair, not very fun. And that's why Mystic Mine should go to 1. Next up, we have Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, my favorite card. I really don't want to put you in here, but you deserve it. You can even be banned for all I care. Please don't get banned, but this is one of the most powerful cards of the format, very defining for the Chaos Thunder Dragon deck because it's able to banish 3 cards, which sets up multiple trigger effects in the next chain, including itself, which lets you stack them up so they can't use Ash Blossom Joy Spring, they can't use Ghost Ogre, and the only thing they can use is Impermanence or Effect Veiler or something that can chain not directly behind a card to negate or destroy it, which is one of the best ways to, I guess, describe what this card does. Basically, it sets up a giant chain, and it will rip a card out of your opponent's hand. Dealing with 1, I think it's okay. Dealing with 1, usually there's a bit of risk only having 1 copy of this, because if you only have 1 copy, if you use a danger effect and you throw it into the graveyard, that's it. Then you're going to need that prize card to fetch it back out, which means the Danger Thunder Dragon deck is basically unplayable unless you have the prize card to fetch this card back, because you're going to run that risk of always losing this card. Having 3 copies of this, you're like, oh, I ditched 1 copy. Doesn't matter. I'll just get another copy and then I'll still rip your hand apart. So putting this down to 1 is really good. And also remember that it has a 3k booty and it can deal a ton of damage to you, so just be careful of that. Salamangreat Circle and I guess Salamangreat Gazelle, both of these cards are considered to be limited for me because Salamangreats have been doing so well in Europe. Congratulations to you guys, which is why they kind of got put on my map right here. But I don't really want to kill the deck. Looking at Chaos Impact, there's also that Pyro Phoenix coming out. And I know that's like ways down at least like another 4 months before we get to see those cards, which is fine. But I feel like killing the deck off right now is kind of pointless. Now, whenever we talk about a deck, a lifespan of a deck usually is relevant to its cost, as much as we don't like to admit it. But if you look at Sky Strikers, the original Sky Striker deck was very pricey with the Engages and the Widow Anchors all being expensive cards. Most decks that cost over about $300-400 can usually live about for a year or so, like, you know, give or take a year. But then if it becomes like a tier 0 issue, then that's a completely different issue. But they'll usually try to balance it out now rather than kill the deck off completely. Another deck that kind of had the similar effect would be Necros. They had a very similar effect where they just go, whoop, we'll just slap it on the wrist, slap on the wrist, slap on the wrist until it's kind of toned down to everyone else's level. So, but then there was also Monarchs. Monarchs was a structure deck based deck, and that did not live as long as we'd hope. But I would say it's about half the lifespan, so I don't think Salamangreats is worth completely killing, but it doesn't mean that they're untouchable. So to weaken their consistency, we're going to hit it in a similar fashion, whereas Monarchs, they lost like Pantheism. We're going to take out their Salamangreat Circle, but you still have Signet Mining, and then we're going to take out Gazelle down to 1 to weaken the consistency. Since Gazelle is your key opener, reducing that down to 1 as your key monster, and that's the way to do it, because there's no point limiting like any Link monsters. The whole playstyle of the deck is to reincarnate Link, and that'd be very stupid to like, oh, Sunlight Wolf to 1 and then call it a day. Yeah, that'd be dumb. So we're just gonna hit the Gazelle. And now we have Jackalope. Honestly, I didn't want to hit Jackalope at all because of the fact that tins are coming out in August 30th, and if you take away some of the chase cards of dangers, then what is there to really acquire? I get that there's a lot of great cards in there, but there's also like another reprint, which is Battle of Legends. Hunting out the Boral Sword there is probably going to be a lot easier than hunting out the chase cards of Boral Swords in the Mega Tin. So that being said, if you take away any of the dangers, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And Konami is very business savvy. They're not going to like make conflicting product releases versus the ban list, which kind of just ruins their own sales. So dangers, in terms of the cheapest one, we'll just hit that one, which is Danger Jackalope, which isn't going to completely cripple out their own sales. That's just my prediction. I know that they don't like to lose money. Next up, we have semi-limited. We have White Dragon Wyvern Burster and Black Dragon Collapse Serpent. Like, oh, you sent me these. Oh, there's no point. People only play 2 copies of some of these cards anyway. Well, there is a point though. It's like Malicious being semi-limited. Like, sure, you don't get your triple summon of all of these cards. Now, all these cards can only summon out once per turn, so it's similar in that fashion. I get that these are still very strong regardless. This still offers 2 bodies by itself for each copy, and you get to replenish the last one. But the problem is if you open with 2 cards, or if you accidentally ditch 1 copy, then it starts to suck a lot, especially when you open 2 copies and you start losing copies. The copy of the opposite color is not going to give you that ability to replenish your hand, so you might play yourself into a corner. It's happened multiple times. I've crippled myself like that, unfortunately, by opening like an all light hand, and I just ended up ditching all my white dragons, and then my black dragons all just felt so much less useful. But semi-limiting is a good testing ground. If it's still too strong, even you can put them down to 1-1 and it'd still be playable. It's just not as good for sure, because then now you have 2 to 3 ways to brick with this card, and then it will just completely kill the playability of the cards. But should they be killed? Maybe, because they don't have a once per turn clause of adding another opposite color. And finally, let's get into the third section here, which is the stuff to be released. So to be released, Clifford Scout. Why is this card even limited? Like, honestly, there's no point limiting this card. They're not on the map right now. They're not going to be played. Okay, there's one note that I want to draw, is that most of these cards are unaffected by hand traps. You can ash these guys because they're unaffected by monsters that are lower level than itself. That means because by base they're at least level 4. If they just normal them or they pendulum them out, yeah, they're level 4. But outside of that, they're level 6 and above, and that makes it very difficult to negate. And that is probably one reason. If they go for a disc, do a double summon play on there, and they just wreck your board and attack for game, that is still a possibility, but that is just like my far-fetched thought about like, oh, why they're so good? Well, they're immune to hand traps for most cases. Then we have Necros up Unicorn. This is probably the one card that needs to get released so that Necros can fully play again. You just gave us Bryo back, you just reprinted everything. You've seen that there are just not enough results. This card will impede a lot of the extra deck plays, and I think this will act as a proper anti-meta for the time being. So it would be very smart to give us back Unicorn, and Unicorn will let us activate the effect to recycle something in the graveyard. It's not like you're giving us Jin back. I get that it's pretty annoying for anyone that's trying to use like a trigger or an ignition effect while Unicorn's on the field, especially the Link monsters, but hey, having an additional anti-meta play is not that bad. I guess that this card can also go into Dweller, so yeah, it does get a little annoying. Next we have, finally, Insector Dragonfly. This is one that I'm a bit more skeptical of, but hey, why not try him out again? We have Hornet back, no Insector play, give us the Dragonflies back, maybe we'll see more play. I get that they're a dark archetype, and perhaps a very annoying thing about this card, it's not once per turn. But putting it to 3, do we play enough equip cells? I get that Hornet can be pretty annoying if you equip it and you shoot something and you blow it up, but you can still have the potential of hitting a Scythe. You can hit like something that's irrelevant, and then there's also Trap Trick that can just completely annihilate this card as well. So there's just lots of ways to kind of deal with him, so why not give it a try? So this is something that's a little off of the top of my head, and yeah, that's about all I got for this video. So this is my ban list prediction. Let me know what you guys think about it. Do you think I hit the right cards in the right decks? Do you think I missed any decks that should have gotten hit? Well, let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think should be hit instead of these particular cards. Are there other cards that are just more devastating? Perhaps you should just hit, like, let's be honest here, they're not going to hit Dingirsu. Dingirsu is just too new, and it's one of the most powerful cards. Do you think they'll hit the field spell instead? Do you think they'll hit not Orcus, but like Nightmare Mermaid? Is there other cards that will hit? Let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts about these things. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit me with a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, don't forget to hit subscribe, ding the notification bell, and if you guys want to help support this channel, check out the Patreon link down in the description, which keeps me alive. I've been doing a lot of research on Rising Rampage. If you guys want to stay tuned for that full set analysis and all the cards that you should be hyped out for that set. After reading that set, honestly, not the most exciting set for me personally, because I don't have very many stakes on that one. There are a couple cards I really care about, and I perhaps would like to get a couple copies of. Aside from those cards, I'm more interested in Chaos Impact, and that's gonna have more impact on me. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please drop us a like so we know we are doing a good job, and you can also subscribe to MST.TV for more fantastic videos by clicking on the button on the left. Don't forget to check out our partners at Imperium Duelist. They make really high quality mats, including some of my own limited edition release stuff. And if you want to check out one of our past videos, click here on the right. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'll see you next time.